Today's discussion is with Shawn Fairbanks. He is the Emergency Service Director for Bradley County. I'm looking forward to it. You know, me and your paths have crossed before, but you ever get out like on a normal work day, I may see you tomorrow and it not even register who you are. I sort of stay pretty well focused.
Exactly. That's the way we both are pretty much. It's you're busy with construction, I'm busy with emergency services. It's just all the time busy. But yeah, I've seen you at Old Fort Restaurant. I've seen you at out in town, just passing by.
And I'm just
Dee Burris, but I don't know Dee Burris.
And I'd like to wear a tag on my shirt that says, "If I don't speak, it's because I didn't notice you."
Yeah.
I might even look at you.
Everybody thinks we're.
Max Carroll was like that. Did you know Max?
No, I did not.
He would speak sometimes and sometimes not, but it was because he was just focused on what he was doing. It didn't mean. And other people aren't. They can see you a mile away and wave.
People think our politicians and other folks are like that. Well, they didn't speak to me or something. It's not like that. Things are
so busy, and you don't know who's got a rock in their shoe or something.
Right.
Not even paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
People are too judgmental on stuff like that, aren't they?
The other problem I have is a lot of people speak to me when I'm out in town, and then we walk away from each other. My wife says, "Who was that?" And I go, "I don't remember. I don't know."
I talked to a
But
lady.
We know each other.
Yeah, there is such a thing as not knowing them, but knowing them.
Yeah. Might have been to school with them. I might have been at their house on an emergency. A lot of people, my family will come and tell me, "Hey, I was at this event or that or in town, and so said they knew you." And I for the life of me can't remember who they are or what that was. It's funny, we sit around and talk about calls that we went on, and I've been in the business. I joined as a volunteer with Charleston Fire in 1990. I was still a senior in high school. From 1990 to now, 2022, I have forgotten a lot of things in the past. Some calls you never forget, and some calls you remember.
Yeah.
We were talking just the other day, and they're like, "You were on that call, and you did this, and this, and you brought this truck up." And
no clue.
I couldn't remember because it was another county employee that said, I wrecked a rail buggy, and you were there. So I met a lady in Hobby Lobby not long ago, and she's like, "Hey, thanks for saving my life." And I'm like, "Who are you?" And she said, "Well, my name's this." And I'm like, "Okay, was I on that call?" But she gave me credit for it, but I don't remember being there.
I had this guy one time that was wanting me to solve a subdivision dilemma he had in Chattanooga. And I'm not that familiar with Chattanooga, especially this building a subdivision, but he had a real problem. And he said, "Do you know the stormwater guy?" And I said, "No." He says his name's Eddie. I forget his last name. And I said, "No, I don't know him, but I'll go meet him." So I went to this meeting, and this stormwater guy would not budge on anything. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do because I was just pulling up in a car in my shorts and from Cleveland, and who am I?
Right.
And so they were all standing at this outside looking at this big dilemma. And the problem was he wouldn't sign the papers till the guys did the work. So when I got up there, I thought, well, I'll introduce myself. And he said, "Is that you, Dee?" And I said, "Yeah." And I couldn't think of who he was. He says, "It's Eddie." And it dawned on me, I'd played foosball with him for 10 years in Chattanooga when I was a teenager. And it was really funny. And he was there 5 minutes and said, "Hey, when Dee says it's done, I'll sign the paperwork." I felt like a rock star.
You're the man.
Just because of that 10 years previous,
I had a guy come out to my house the other day to help me find a problem that I have. And he was there for 5 minutes and was helping me do his job. And all of a sudden he looked at me and he said, "What year did you graduate?" And I told him, and he said, "I did too." I said, "I know you." And called him by name. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I mostly stayed in A Hall and H Hall." I said, "Well, I stayed a lot in H Hall." So
Was that at Bradley?
Yeah.
Which one was H Hall?
Now that was vocational.
That's where I stayed.
Yeah.
What year did you graduate?
91.
I graduated 84. What did you take?
I went to be a welder machinist, and my dad had me welding probably since I was about 9 years old when he first put a stick in my hand. He was a millwright, pipe fitter, boiler maker, all that kind of stuff as he grew up and was doing things. He worked at Duracell for the longest, retired from there. So I went to that. Brown Sane was the welding teacher my first year there.
Always wore that hat.
Yeah. And then he retired, and then we got Mark Kress in. I did 2 years of my welding. And then my third year, I went to machine shop with Mr. Bain. And Mr. Bain came I was working on a lathe or something one day, and he came over and he said, "Hey, if you want to go back, it's okay." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "No, if you really want to go back, it's okay." And I said, "Mr. Bain, I don't know what you're talking about." Well, what it was is I welded a bunch of the gates up at Bradley that kids were running through. I built the tennis court bleachers. A lot of Mr. Hughes's friends brought stuff by to weld up and everything. And I guess I was needed back down there. So I said, "I really don't know what you're talking about." He said, "I'll take care of this." So I did my full year of machine shop, also learned a lot. And they have a great vocational program there. I wish more of our schools around here had some of that, but I was able to walk out of Bradley High School. There was a place that's out of business now, Southern Farm Equipment up on White Oak. And I went in there as a teenage boy, walked in after high school, and I said, "Hey, you looking for any welders?" And a bunch of the guys were sitting around, had their feet up on the desk and everything. And they're like, "Nope." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I just want to come by and ask. I was wanting a welding job." He said, "Well, do you mind welding in those clothes?" And I said, "No, I don't mind welding in the clothes." He said, "Well, take a welding test, and when I need someone, we'll know." I said, "Okay." So they got the shop foreman. He took me out. He said, "We run our machines hot and fast. Are you okay with that?" And I said, "Sure." And so he said, "Well, run this pass here." So I run a T-joint, run a lap joint, and he had me run one vertical or horizontal or something. I remember lifting my hood up, and he was gone. And I looked around, and he came back out of the office, and papers were flying everywhere. And he said, "Sign these so you don't have to sign them on Monday when you come to work." I said, "I thought you weren't looking for welders." He said, "We got a lot of people coming by looking for jobs that can't weld." So I went to work there after high school.
Was that all because of Bradley High? Or no, because your dad had taught you?
Well, Dad and Bradley High, they taught me a lot. We had a stick welder at home. Now we got stick and MIG and stuff like that. But back when you go to Bradley High School, I mean, they do Heliarc and MIG and stick and oxyacetylene. They taught us a lot there. We had a good time.
Were you from Charleston?
I live up on the north end of Van Davis Road, Nopone area out in there. So it's
at the very end of Nopone?
It's Charleston mailing address. I'm about middle ways of Van Davis.
A Charleston what?
It's a mailing address.
Oh, yeah.
Moore Road and Van Davis Road is kind of the crossroads for the mailing address. It was either you were Georgetown, Charleston, or Cleveland. That's kind of
that's true. I hadn't thought about that, but it is sort of Georgetown.
Because I lived on Moore Road for a while, and I was Georgetown. I moved a quarter mile down the road on Van Davis. I turned into Charleston, and then I know the folks the other way are Cleveland. So it's kind of a
it takes a while to get to here from end of Van Davis Road, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, 20 minutes?
Yeah. I can drive to Chattanooga before I can get from one end of Cleveland to the other. When I worked on the ambulance still, was on a truck regularly and worked on the east side, right there by Cameron's, the health department, that little station there. It would take me 30 minutes to get there from that end.
30 minutes. Do you eat at Cameron's much?
Yeah.
Of course.
My name should be on the wall.
I hadn't eaten there in a long time.
Yeah, we still go there. Those guys on that station usually go over there, get breakfast and stuff.
Is it pretty good now?
Yeah, very good. Yeah. And then, of course, we frequent Old
Oh,
Fort
for it, yeah.
for
I usually
breakfast.
go, yeah, Old Fort some for breakfast, and then usually Wednesday for lunch.
Yeah,
Hot dog day.
that's good. It's got to take care of you. uh,
For some reason, I knew you were from Charleston, and I'm not sure why. Do you have a bigger connection to Charleston than just living out there?
I've always lived on the north end of Bradley County. I've always lived out in that area. Charleston was my first love. Like I said, I joined the volunteer fire department in
Maybe
Charleston
that's what it was.
in 1990. Still a senior in high school. Um, I just had this overwhelming urge to help, to serve, and to be a part of that.
Is a volunteer fire department as a volunteer fireman? Do you go? Does they have somebody staying at the station all the time?
No,
They just
no,
wait till something calls.
no. Yes, we give pagers. We now get text messages of the calls. We have radios, all that stuff. So back when I got in, there was just pagers, and you wore a big brick on your side,
Yeah.
or you carried a radio. 1990, I talked to some friends of mine. I had some uncles that were with Cleveland Fire. Donnie Sullivan, Mikey Sullivan, they were my uncles. And they said, "Hey, you go up there and get you start and get some volunteer time in and start learning." So I went up there. I remember talking to some guys from there, and they said, "If you will just go to a monthly meeting, that's all you have to do, and they'll talk to you about it." And I said, "Okay." At the time, Dave Thompson was the fire chief, and I go to this monthly meeting at Charleston Volunteer Fire Department. I walk in, I sit on a couch, and you're squished in there. Everybody's just kind of sitting in this little old room, and they're having their monthly meeting. And I didn't say a word, almost scared to death. They were talking about business. And then after it was over, Dave Thompson wore his red butcher hat on his head all the time, hard hat like. And he said, so he leaned back in his chair and he said, "So son, you want to be a volunteer fireman?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Come up here." So I stood in front of his desk and he said, "Where you live?" And I told him. He says, "Well, don't come across that hill for just a car fire or something little. But if it's a big one, you come on and we're going to start teaching you." And he yelled, he said, "Philip," which is Philip Shelton. He said, "Philip, get him some gear." And they put me in gear, and within a day or two, I was starting to run fires. So that's how it went. Funny story about that. Like I said, I was a senior in high school. There was also a shop teacher, Mr. Chittenden was the wood shop or woodworking teacher at Bradley. He was a volunteer in Charleston. And I remember sitting in a math class one day at Bradley, my senior year, and these little aides from the office had came in, and they walked up and said something to my teacher. They turn and walk out, and she looks back at me. She says, "Shawn, come up here." And I said, "Okay." So I walk. She says, "Bring everything with you." So I grabbed my stuff up and I walk up there, and she says, "There's a wreck on the interstate, and you need to go." I said, "Well, I don't leave school to go on wrecks. Matter of fact, anything. I was supposed to be in school."
Yeah.
I said, "Well," she said, "go to the office and figure it out." So I walked up toward the office, and Nancy Adams and Coach Z and stuff were
Coach
up there.
Z, I remember him.
And they said, "Yeah, there's a wreck on the interstate. You're supposed to go. They've been calling up here trying to get you." And I'm like, "Can I call the fire hall?" So I called the fire hall. Arnold Hambright was there. He answered, and I said, "Arnold, something about a wreck." He says, "Get up here. Don't come to interstate now." And I said, "Okay." I didn't know what was going on, but I got in my car and I pulled out of Bradley High School, and I could see the mushroom cloud. It was the I-75 pileup back in 1990. And all these folks were flooding out of Collegedale area, coming up South Lee, coming toward us and to help. And funny thing about that is my mom worked at a local company here in town, and she had heard about it. And she just told me this story the other day. And she said, "I was so happy that you were in school, and I knew that my son wasn't at that wreck." And she said, "When you didn't come home that night, like when you were supposed to,"
Yeah.
she said, "that I figured out you were up there." She said, I was upset because I thought, man, I had it made because you wouldn't be up there in that mess." I said, "I was at that mess for 13 hours. It was,
We forget about that big wreck, don't we?
oh, yeah.
I don't remember where I was at the time.
Yeah.
Was it like 90 or 91?
December of 1990. It was fixing to turn 91.
What was your take on it? Was it really, really, really bad?
Yeah, I was a 18-year-old boy learning. I'd only been in a few months, and I mean, cars smashed in between tractor trailers.
How many died?
12 or 13 in a 99 car pileup, which is a blessing in a way because the potential was there for so much more.
What would you do if you was a car in that? I think I would just get out and run as far as I could, as fast as I
Some
could.
people did. Some people didn't. The problem was, and it was hard to explain. I did get to experience it. The reason Arnold Hambright told me not to come by the interstate because he knew what would happen. But when I got to the fire hall, I called and said, "Where do you want me?" And they said, "Come, like to Bowater Road and come over to exit 36."
At the Quonset hut.
Yeah. Be careful. Don't run into the fog. It was like that area was just at the intersection. All the way to the Quonset hut, you could see. But once you got to the interstate, you couldn't see. It was
couldn't see nothing.
You could take a white sheet and throw it over your head. That's what it looked like. It was total white. And there were fire trucks coming out to go get more water and whatever. And
they couldn't see either, I guess, could they?
And we were walking out or walking back in to go see what we needed to do. And you were dodging fire trucks trying not to get run over. But it was literally
how did they see? How did they see, reckon? Is there any special equipment for seeing in the fog?
No.
What time did it start that morning?
It was early. What was crazy, it was a beautiful, bright, sunshiny day everywhere, blue skies. And then you had that
7 o'clock in the morning, it was fine?
No, I was already in school, first or second class.
So it hit about what, 9 o'clock or something?
Probably about 9-ish. It was early that morning. It was still cool that morning when we got up there and stuff, but it was a long, long day.
Did they determine if that was natural?
I didn't get to read the final. There's a documentary out on it on TV. I can't remember if it was History or A&E or who did it.
I remember that.
There is one out on it, and they explain a lot. I think they gave some credit to dumping into the river and the steam from the cool and the hot, and I think that was part of it.
I know when you go down there, sometimes when the fog's heavy, you can't really see.
It's a natural.
It's not. You can see, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and now the fog warning system, it works in the rain real good. It's not.
It tells you that it's going to be foggy when it's raining.
They can activate it manually from the THP office. If the highway patrolman tells them, "Hey, activate it," they can activate it. Start trying to slow people down.
Did it take 13 hours to get the road going again?
They started paving that night. The fires were so hot and burned so long off the tractor trailers and different stuff they were hauling. The diesel, it melted the asphalt. They were in the middle of the night. They repaved all that.
Is that right?
Sure did. I remember we took a break. The Charleston guys took a break. It was close to 11, 12 o'clock at night. And when they sent us over, Shoney's was still in business here. They sent over soups and sandwiches and stuff to feed us. And we just sat down and all took a bite. And Calhoun Fire Department called and said they had discovered some more stuff and they needed more help. And we had to go right back. So it was no food, but we got back over there and they started lifting tractor trailers and finding more cars under them and stuff like that. So it was an interesting day.
That was probably the biggest thing that's ever happened to Cleveland as far as a disaster. What would have been another one?
Tornadoes, 2012.
Yeah, I guess so. How many would they have killed?
Well, I don't remember the death tolls on that. I remember 5 tornadoes in one day. The first one hit out by my house, No Pone area. I went to it from the house. I was working second shift at that time on the ambulance as a supervisor. Went to that one. That one wasn't too awful bad. Some houses got a little bit of destruction, a lot of trees down. And then the rest of the day just kept booming and booming and booming. At that time, in emergency services, which this is a whole nother discussion, in emergency services, most of us have multiple jobs. We love what we do. We're not doing it for the money, but we do love what we do, so we have to hold down more jobs. I was working drug task force and EMS at that time, full time, both of them. And I'd been in McMinn County most of the day working with drug task force during the day, and then in 4 o'clock in the evenings, I had to be at EMS 4 to midnight. Right before I got back to EMS, the one hit Villa over there off of Georgetown. I did not go to that one, and then the rest of the night, all of them were hitting hard on the south end of the county, Benton Pike, Lead Mine Valley, all that down in there those were some powerful tornadoes. I got hit that night by a drunk driver responding to a call, flipped me over. I was only going a few, like 30, 35 miles an hour, weaving through traffic on Inman Street. And city fire engine coming through. I'm going back into town. I mean, it was chaos that night. Everybody was just crisscrossing. And as soon as the fire truck came through, I was going to go around a van that had stopped, and he turned into me and hit me. Sent me up an embankment, broke my wheel off, so it flipped me over. I got out. THP was there, the whole 9 yards. I crawled into another Crown Vic of some sort. Mm-hmm. Stan Clark drove me around the rest of the night, and we still run calls. That Crown Vic was a blessing because when the trees would fall across the road, the big trucks couldn't get through, but we could go under them and keep going and trying to help folks, especially down in the Lead Mine Valley area that night. That really helped out, being in a car, really.
Does Bradley County still have volunteer
yes.
firemen?
Bradley County Fire is a combination department.
Because the layman, this is all confusing because we don't know.
Yeah. We have 60, 65, 68 full-time firefighters in Bradley County.
What about Cleveland?
Cleveland's right at 100 and something.
So it's two separate things.
Yes.
Cleveland Fire Department, Bradley County Fire Department.
City Fire and County Fire. The ambulance service is both. They handle county and city.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem.
Now, the city obviously doesn't have volunteers. They have the city fire department.
Right.
But the county has how many stations?
13.
13. They're all built about the same, aren't they?
Pretty much. You have your volunteer stations that were built before the full-time stations. Your full-time stations are Hopewell, Menace Road, Dalton Pike, and Tasso.
There's one on Dry Valley.
Chatta Valley.
What is that?
That's a volunteer station.
Volunteer station.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a fire truck in it?
It has two. It has a pumper truck, and it has a mini pumper or a brush truck. It could, it's on a Ford Super Duty frame.
13 fire departments in the county. That'd be what, 26 trucks?
A lot. Most of them have 2 or more trucks at them.
Oh, that's a lot, isn't it?
We have a lot of equipment.
Of course, that's a big deal if your house is burning.
Yeah. 10, 11, 12, 13, which is 10 is North Lee, 11 is Menace, 12 is Dalton Pike, 13 is Hopewell. Those are your core 24/7. There's someone there. Probably my second or third year as the chief, I petitioned to break it up a little bit and take those volunteer stations at McDonald, Taylor, and Harrison Pike Prospect. And we put 2 people full-time, 24/7 in those stations. Of course, they're smaller stations. The truck cabs hold 2 people comfortably. They're not the cab overs with more room in them or 4 doors or nothing like that. So we put 2 people at there. The idea behind that was to get quick response to the county in those areas. Prospect is heavily populated with houses and people,
More so at a high rate of speed.
and Taylor Station.
Yeah.
Now, McDonald is more property value. Let's say you got some pretty big subdivisions down that way, and
Down towards the south for sure.
yeah, you got, was it Lakewood or
Yeah.
out in there, and Bendabout Farms and all this
Yeah.
stuff. So they're there too, but those three stations, putting 2 men on them, quick response, get there, get everything set up. When a normal structure fire, you're getting four different stations coming. We may be in the Prospect area with that fire station, but you got to have more than that one truck and those 2 people, or even if it's another station, which we have 4 people per truck on the 10, 11, 12, 13, those bigger stations. So you're getting 4 there, you're getting a battalion commander, any of the chiefs that go, and then you get all these other departments or stations that will come, because we need tankers for water. We need the more hands.
Back up.
It takes a lot out of you when you put the air mask on and all the gear. And
How is the gear heavy?
yes,
Is it rigid?
To a certain extent. They've come a long way with the equipment. Used to, it was steel bottles for your air. Now they're down to carbon fiber and aluminums and stuff like that. So they've lightened those up a lot. Gear, they know it's got to be more flexible and stuff. We just bought new gear probably a year or so ago. We went with the Red Zone line gear, which is, there's all kind of technology that goes into firefighting gear. It's got elastic around the cuffs of everything. It seals up nice so you don't get soot and carcinogens on you. The big push in fire industry is staying away from cancer because of smoke, carcinogens, particles in the air from everything that's going on. The stuff that's burning is toxic. All these construction materials,
Yeah.
a lot of it's toxic. It's got a lot of glues.
Maybe some asbestos,
Lead
lead paint.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. So staying on air during a structure fire is pretty important. We do carry gas monitors. We have explosive gas detectors on us. We can read carbon monoxide and all that kind of stuff. So right after a house fire, it's very toxic levels. So you start wearing those guys out pretty quick, and then you're toting a 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 hose through a house and with 120 pound of pressure on it, and fighting fire,
and 150-pound guy,
and pulling down ceilings and moving tin out of the way, and crawling over furniture and stuff falling.
In a month's time, how often would a Bradley County Fire Department person have to put on the air mask?
We run average of a little over 100 structure fires a year that I would say you're masking up and going.
I would have never dreamed that much.
Right at 100. The biggest thing in the fire industry, you go to all the car wrecks.
That's 10 a month.
With injuries, yeah. With injuries.
Yeah, cars,
stuff. Yeah. We do all the vehicle extrication. We have trench rescue for collapse, building collapse, anything like that. We got everything set up for that. Water rescue, swift water, dive. We have several boats. We have some stationed at the Charleston station. We have some down here off the Emmons Street side, because we actually respond to Polk County for a lot of the water stuff up at Parksville and the Whitewaters and stuff.
How come that is?
We do the mutual aid system in the fire industry. So we realized long ago, and they did, that you can't do it by yourself. Everything you would need personnel-wise and equipment-wise would pretty much bankrupt a county because it's so expensive to be in the fire industry, or any industry really. So we do the mutual aid system to where if I'm on a fire, let's take Walker, Olin, any of those big industries on our north end, I have to call for help.
You have to have
if they have
it
issues.
would be confident. It would be a lot of confidence to know you can call and they'll be there.
Yeah, and I can make one phone call, and they have coordinators for the mutual aid system, and all I got to do is say, I need this many tankers, I need this many pumpers, I need this many ladders, and or I need this much personnel. And I have no fear that when I hung that phone up or got off that radio, it's coming. Those guys will bend over backwards. We have monthly meetings just for the mutual aid system, just so that we all
is that
stay tied together.
Dayton included, Decatur?
Yes.
Yeah. How many would come to how many counties would come to the mutual aid?
A lot, because they're like Baptist. You offer food and they come.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'd be like Calhoun, Charleston, Polk County.
Dayton, right? We even cover North Georgia with it because we're right here on the line. So North Georgia is in our system now. And Western North Carolina, that touches Copper Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Up in that area.
Is that Ranger, North Carolina? Or
sounds familiar.
Or Suits County, maybe? And
what caused that is they had an arsonist on the loose right across the line at Cherokee one night, and he was burning like 7 buildings and was still running. And they called for us to come on up. Now, we ended up having to stop at the North Carolina line. We covered Polk County while Polk County went across. You do some backfilling.
I see, yeah.
But that call actually spurred Western North Carolina to come into our tri-state mutual aid system.
That's what these meetings are for. How will we handle this?
Yeah.
Say this happened.
Yeah. And they actually do a little training at those meetings. They do serve food. It's like supper time, and then they have the meetings, and everybody gets to discuss what they need to discuss, and you go about your way. So North Georgia, Western North Carolina, all the Tri-Cities up and through. We've been to all the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge fires.
Oh, yeah.
But not only that, I mean, even during hurricanes, we get calls. You know, how many can you send to Florida? How many can you send to Alabama or Mississippi, wherever it's coming? And we try to accommodate anywhere it's stricken. We've been to Texas on the floods. We've been to Nashville for the floods. South Carolina flood because of our water stuff. So we get used quite often.
When somebody has a fire way out in the county, do they call 911? Does everything go through 911?
Yes.
Before that, which was what? 911 system came about when?
Probably when I was getting in. I remember
about 95 or something, maybe.
Probably before that, probably 92-ish, 93.
Before that, you just called the police station or the fire department?
Yeah.
And then, so that's not us. You need to, I'll connect you. They probably would connect you to the other.
Could have. I remember in Charleston when I came, when the pager went off for Charleston, technology had come far enough to where we had a pager. There was still a siren that went off in the city of Charleston, like what we hear for the nuclear test siren. It's a big siren that went off, and you could hear it all through Charleston. That alerted the firemen, come to the fire hall, there's a call. That's how it used to be done. Like a dispatcher would flip the switch, turn the siren on. People would come running to the fire hall to figure out where they needed to go. We've come a long way since then.
We've come a long way. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, there used to not be even any real volunteer fire halls when I was young. It was more like a bunch of volunteers, but I don't even know if they had a place they met.
I don't know about that. I know that Cleveland always covered Bradley County, Cleveland Fire Department, the city. They covered all the county stuff except for the Charleston area. Charleston being a city, due to the charters of being a city, I guess, had to have a fire department. So they had a volunteer fire department. So Charleston covered that area I was in all the way over to Meigs County, Lower River Road end and stuff like that, all the way to Polk County, up Benton Station Road up in there. As far as coming down, Dry Valley Road, Bellefountain area down in there. I don't remember how far south we went, but then in 95 is when Bradley County went to the volunteer system in 95. and it was straight volunteer. They built the stations. They bought the international cab trucks, Central State fire trucks. We still have those, pretty good trucks. And those mini pumpers, and they could act as brush trucks or pump a fire. They've actually saved us a couple times getting up somebody's rough driveways or muddy areas or something you can't get a big fire engine up in.
That would be, or a washed out road that's.
Yeah, I buried my Tahoe one time trying to get up to a place, and we brought one of those little mini pumpers or 4-wheel drive. We was able to get it up a driveway on a big A-frame house. It's fully involved.
Seems like,
and we just left a hose at the driveway to pump up to it, and just everybody kept feeding it water. But they got like 1,500 gallon minute pumps on them. They're doing great. Or 1250s, 1,250 gallon.
Getting the power hooked up, disconnected from the house would be the first order of business.
It's important, especially if you're going to make entry.
What's the first order of business?
It's called a 360. When you get to a structure, it's on fire. You want to walk all the way around the house. You want to look for hazards. You want to see if there's propane. You want to see if there's a basement, any root cellars, any overhead lines, stuff like that. Due to some firefighters seeing or just pulling up to the front of the house and going, hey, the fire's in there. We see it through the window. Go get it, boys. And when they go through the door to the basement, they would go.
Yeah.
Because the floor would burn out or whatever. So 360 is the first thing. The first person on the scene has to do is walk all the way around the house.
No matter who it is,
no matter.
The first thing.
The first person on the scene will establish command. Let's say, let's take Ocoee Street. On the scene, Ocoee Street, fire going through the A-B side. We give each side of the house a letter. Going through the A-B side.
How do you know which go? You go
the front of the house is A, and then you go clockwise. So you got A, B, C, and D. And so then they say, stand by, completing 360. And they'll walk around the house, and then they'll say, I see a propane tank. It's this far from the house. No other hazards noted. We'll be making entry through the front door. And then once the commander gets on scene, they're usually coming in the SUVs and stuff like that to run the show and command it. They will assume command once they get there. But the first order of business is at 360, and that's for firefighter safety and everybody on the scene. A lot of times we'll have down lines. It'll be burning before we get there, and don't want to get hit with that.
You got to call Volunteer Electric or
whoever's district it is, and dispatch is real good about figuring that out for us.
Dispatch would be where at?
It's over on Guthrie beside Cleveland Utilities.
Yeah, so that is dispatch.
That is our dispatch. That's where all the 911 calls go into. That's where all the behind the scenes stuff that's very important happens.
Can you see in a firefighter, they're usually friendly people, easygoing, blah, blah, blah. But can you see a change in their face when it's time to play, when it's serious?
Yeah. Most people know firefighting from what they see on TV. Yeah. And they see, let's take Chicago Fire. It's more of your drama. You got your love stories going on, and you got your
eating donuts.
Yeah, and all this stuff. It is fun. The fire hall is fun. You're a family. You spend you spend 24 hours out of every 3 days with those people. So it's a family. You either hate or really love the person that you're working with, and they're a team. Thank goodness we're blessed. We have a lot of great employees and firefighters and emergency workers. There is a time that there's a lot of play and a lot of joking, a lot of problem solving. I like to say firemen like to sit around and solve the world's problems because they have so much time, and then they make it my issues. But that comes with the job. Yeah. But when that bell goes off or that tone drops, it's all business. They are. You have to have a servant's heart to do what those guys do. You have to want to do that and want to be used. It's a thankless job most of the time, but they do it because they want to make it. The biggest thing I get is someone does get hurt at that house fire, or someone gets hurt in a car wreck and it's very serious and stuff, my phone or my office will be busy with the firefighters that responded or the EMS workers that responded to that and go, Chief, if you had any updates, because they're wanting to hear how they're doing. Our motto at Bradley County EMS is because we care. And I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of people that do care. It's about helping and giving back to the community and wanting to see everybody do good and prosper. The thing about it is not always happens. And those guys are like, hey, can I go by the funeral home? Or, hey, can I go stop by the hospital with a fire truck or with an ambulance or whatever? I want to go check on them. Back before COVID. Now we can't get in. Even us.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
Now, Shawn, where does the ambulances? They are a separate entity, right?
Yes. The ambulances are a separate entity from fire. They are funded by city and county taxpayers. The fire department has its own tax base for county. The ambulance service is city and county taxes, fund based from those tax dollars, general fund. Ambulance is located station-wise. We have a station on Paul Huff, of course, across from Home Depot, IHOP, that area. And then we have the one that we talked about in front of Cameron's, beside the health department. That's the Dooley Street station. And then what we have done is placed an ambulance in each county fire hall at Hopewell, Menace, Dalton Pike, and Tasso.
So you're in charge of fire ambulances too?
Yes. When Danny Lawson retired in 2015, I started Bradley County EMS in 1994.
So that's not fire.
No.
EMS is not fire. It's ambulance.
It's just ambulance, emergency medical services. Danny Lawson retired in 2015, March of 2015. Gary gave me that job as being the new director. And I was the director for several months, probably 4 or 5. Passed him in the hallway up at the courthouse one day, and he says, hey, be in my office at 1:30 today. I need to talk. And I thought, what did I do? So I showed up in his office at 1:30, and he says, here's your new job description, and here's your new pay. And you now are over fire and EMS.
Oh, so that's a sort of a tier thing. Here's ambulance, here's fire,
Yep.
And then you're sort of over both of them.
That's why it's emergency services director.
Right.
So it's over 2 departments.
That's why your shirt says fire rescue
now,
and not just ambulance.
Not just ambulance, right.
It should say fire rescue and ambulance.
Yes, should say all of it. For a while, I made my own uniform up because people got jealous that I wear one uniform and not the other. But
do other counties of our size have a emergency management?
Emergency management is Troy Spence.
Emergency services.
Emergency services. I've heard of the state has talked to me about this. I think there's one more in Tennessee that does that.
What is Troy? What's his position?
It's emergency management agency. They have a lot to do with Sequoia, Watts Bar, the nuclear plants, planning disasters and emergencies for our county, preparedness wise, to make sure that we're ready to do whatever the task is that comes our way. They play a big role when we have the natural disasters with the tornadoes, any flooding, stuff like that. Hazardous materials. They mitigate, and they're able to get TEMA here, Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, which you have to have them here before you get to tap into federal funds if it's that bad, which our tornadoes and all did. Tap into federal funds.
Do you work under Troy?
No.
So that's
it's his own department.
Whole other thing.
Yeah, he's under Gary.
Yeah.
I'm under Gary. and that's how all that works. But ambulance started here in Bradley County in 1972. That's the year I was born. And then
What about before that?
it was funeral homes.
That was Ralph Buckner Sr.
Yeah,
I knew him.
the hearses got
Yeah.
you and took you to the hospital.
So the funeral homes
Run ambulance, which were only put you in the back and take you hurriedly. It was called a diesel drip. That meant, you know, we get IVs now. Before you ever get to the hospital, you'll get an IV put in you.
the hearses didn't do that, right?
They didn't do nothing. They put you in the back.
Did they get paid for that?
Well, funny story. I'm fortunate enough to got to work with some of
That's
the.
why a hearse is long like that. Also,
Some of the old hands, you know, when I came in, were from still there that started back in the late 70s. Were still there, and they talk about a car wreck back when the funeral homes had it. A car wreck here in
in
Bradley
the
County.
70s, as early as that's not that big.
No, I'm only 50.
Yeah, yeah.
But car wreck back then, you would have multiple services responding. Funeral homes.
Yeah.
We had more than one funeral home. So they would race to the scene and then sometimes end up in a fist fight over who was going to get the dead body.
Mhm.
They didn't want the live one. They wanted the dead body, get paid more money.
And the live one's sitting there saying, "Hey, help me."
Can I go to the hospital?
Yeah.
So that was some of the stories.
Wonder if they get paid anything.
I don't know. We didn't have all this fancy insurance and
Yeah.
stuff
Might have been
back then
more
either.
people just helping.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you'd be afraid to pick them up because they'd sue you.
Yeah, one of the other stories on back in the day calls for ambulance, we talked about off camera, I guess, John and Roy, Squad 51,
Yeah.
Adam 112, and
Adam-
all those shows.
Adam 12.
Paramedics and EMTs were not a thing back then. That started 70s. So everybody in the public was not used to medical care in the field. You had to go to a doctor. You had to get to the doctor, you know, let's say. One of the things that some of the old hands talked about here that I was fortunate enough to get to work with is they had went to EMT school or they had went to paramedic school and then came back and started implementing treating people in the field. And sheriff's deputies or police officers weren't used to seeing that and were scolding them.
Got offended.
And telling them, you're not a doctor, don't do that
Yeah.
to them. They're putting an air splint, which is ancient because we have now these traction splints and all
Yeah.
this other stuff. Putting a simple air splint on someone so their arm or their leg is stabilized, it's broke, and you're blowing it up like through a straw. And they're saying, you're not a doctor, you can't do that. And if you don't hurry up and take them to the hospital, I'm going to put you in jail. That kind of stuff went on back then because they didn't know what was happening. They weren't used to seeing people treated. You're supposed to throw them in the truck and run as fast as you can to the hospital. They need a doctor.
And so they always say don't move their head, keep their head straight, lift their legs.
So you got, let's break down paramedic. That word breaks down into beside doctor. You're working beside a doctor. Bradley County EMS, even the fire department that runs first response medical calls, has to have a doctor as your medical director sign on to say, I'm going to oversee the paramedics, not oversee them, but I'm letting them work under my license. Dr. Jesse Coleman is the ER physician up here at Tenova. He's the one for EMS and the medical.
It'd be like somebody building houses under my license.
Exactly.
But am I overseeing them?
Yeah.
Am I overseeing them? Or are they just using my license?
They're using you.
If I did that, they'd put me in jail for that.
But the control part of that is he gets to write what you do and what you don't do.
Oh, I see.
The protocols.
Oh. The policies or something like that.
Yeah, the standard operating procedures and stuff like that. And then we meet with him anytime we want. He's available. He usually comes to the stations on Fridays, checks up on stuff and reports and anything that someone did that may need some mediation on. Let's talk about this. Don't do this again, or you did great here. So he's good about that. Dr. Jerry Devane is the medical director for the fire department in Bradley County. Both men do a wonderful job and dedicate their time. They don't get paid for that, but they're allowing us to do it. And that's great.
Now, let me ask you this: do they have that's suited for you because you've been a fireman? If you weren't a fireman, you wouldn't know how to have an ambulance at the fire halls and how to work with the firemen, right?
What got me started in EMS is, like I said, 1990 Charleston fire. I was a lot littler back then. So I guess in high school, my waist size was 29.
29, yeah.
And stuff. And now I'm working at this volunteer fire department with a bunch of guys that are a lot older than me. And these little car crashes that are all crumpled up and stuff. They're like, hey, crawl through that hole and get in there and check on this person. And I finally realized I might need to learn some stuff about medical. So I went over here to Cleveland State to the EMT program, went through that, got out. You do a lot of clinical time riding with EMS and working in the ERs and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, it's pretty cool. I actually tried out for Cleveland Fire. I didn't pass their written test the first time I ever took it. That was pretty disheartening as a young teenage boy. And I decided I'd like to be at EMS, and stayed there a lot, rode a lot, and learned the job. And there's two different types of learning in emergency services. There's book learning, and then there's street learning. So I was getting street learning at that time, and I got a little disheartened. There was a bunch of times that I think, back in the 90s, people had to die or retire to get one of those jobs.
I remember, yeah.
It was bad if you wanted to work here.
You had to know somebody or something.
Yeah. And I was working at the hospital when it was Bradley Memorial as an attendant, and learned a lot there too. But I got a call one day.
What does an attendant do?
Attendant goes and gets patients off the floor, and I was an attendant for x-ray. So I'd go get a patient off the floor, bring them down to x-ray, shoot. The techs would shoot their x-rays and stuff, and I would transport them back up.
How'd you get that job?
Interviewed for it. Sam Shamblin was the director of x-ray at the time, and the job had came open there for that attendant. They had a daytime and a nighttime set of attendant. And they also had hospital attendants. I don't know, back in the day, I guess they might have been called orderlies.
Yeah, orderly, yeah.
Did
you like that job?
I did. I learned a lot because when I wasn't busy in x-ray, I would meander down to the ER.
Yeah, right.
And learned quite a bit. Bradley Memorial, those doctors up there, they used to put chest tubes in, crack your chest in the middle of the ER for traumas. Whatever come in was handled pretty well. But I went and sat down with Sam Shamblin, interviewed with him, and back when I was in high school, I actually worked at Moore Knoll Dairy Farm on Dry Valley Road, John Moore.
Yeah, I used to haul hay for him.
And Jack and Jim were across the street, but I worked for John Moore. And
I worked for John.
Did you? Good.
Yeah.
And
it was hot, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Did you work in that? If you're going north, they had that barn on the left. First barn you come to on the left. It may not even be there now. Which one did you work in?
The right. Going toward Charleston, I was on the right.
I was on the right. They had the spring out in front of the barn.
Yeah.
Where you could get water.
Yeah.
Well, it was hot in there, wasn't it?
It was. And so when I was interviewing Sam Shamblin at Bradley Memorial, he said, I see on your application that you've worked at a dairy farm. I said, yes, sir. Worked up there for about 3 or 4 years. We're in high school. And he said, I'll be in contact. Well, I was out front of the hospital talking to a buddy of mine that worked in the ER, and Sam had came by to go outside. And he said, hey, I had some more phone calls to make and interview, but if you've worked on a dairy farm, you know how to work. So come on in. So that's how I got my first job at Bradley Memorial.
Compared to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Climbing in top of those silos and chopping silage and hauling hay and straw. And it was, but I enjoyed every bit of that. I still got a little farm up here on my end. I raised some cattle. And
how many?
I used to raise Texas Longhorns. I had up about 30 of those.
30, golly.
And that's not a market for those around here. So you'd have to do some traveling to do those for market and sell breeders or whatever. Don't have that kind of time anymore and stuff. So I got out of the Longhorns probably a few years ago, and I'm just doing some commercial cattle now, beef cattle and stuff.
Well, how does that work? What is it you do?
Buy calves.
How many?
I'm running 10 right now.
So you buy 10 calves?
Yeah, buy 10 calves. I had some bottle feeders this time, some little ones, and bottle feed till they're ready
How
to
long
wean.
do you keep them?
My goal is to keep just from spring to fall, and then sell in the fall, so I don't have to feed hay and.
Well, they cost a lot to buy.
They did this last time. Cow prices are up real good right now, so.
So you just raise them for meat?
Yeah, I'm gonna take them back to the barn and sell. I'm putting weight on feeder calves. It's type stuff. So keeps you busy.
Did you learn most of that from the Moors?
Oh yeah, and we've always had cows on our place too. We've always lived out there and messed with cows and stuff. We've always had a lot of cows, but it's fun to mess with them and play mini farmer.
Does Jim does their daddy, Jim and Jack, which was their daddy was Johnny, right? Johnny Moore.
I don't know that part.
He lived furthest out on the left, right?
Might have been.
Because that's where you had to go get the check when they paid you.
One of the things I found out, I called John Markmore not long ago and asked about some calves, and he said they didn't have any. They had stopped milking back last July because milk prices were nothing now. They weren't making any money and stuff. So their whole farm's in soybean and corn right now, just trying to stay alive. The milk wasn't paying the bills, so our farmers are hurting around here trying to make it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to become of that sort of thing anymore. I guess it'd be just commercial people like you raising 20 and 30. That's not a big help.
No, we're just hobbying. I don't know.
You make any money at it at all? A little bit?
Hopefully you keep down what you're spending, and then once you go sell, if prices are good, you sell on a good day, and then you come back and deduct your expenses from what you brought home and see what you end up with.
And if you divided that by the hour, it'd be $3 an hour, right? Something like that.
Something like it. It's fun.
And so that's your main hobby?
Family, church, hobby farm. I like doing a little excavation work every now and then, farming, tractors and stuff. I've always liked being outdoors and stuff. Might have a welding project to do, I still piddle with it some, and just whatever. Where live out in the country and get to do what you want to do.
Did you ever know Bobby Godfrey that lived out there?
I do not.
You ever knew him? He was at the end of Van Davis, close to there.
Boy, that sounds familiar. Yeah. Was it a little red house?
He lived in the house as you go the end of Lauderdale, and you take a right. You go up Lower River, and he's on the left across from.
So familiar.
Before you get to that Potter subdivision.
Potter Place,
yeah. He lived on the left.
No.
Now, when these ambulances, do you have to have a EMS person on the ambulance? Is there?
Yes. Right now, everybody's having trouble finding help.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a shortage of employees. Fire department, I can go out and run an ad and put it online and all this stuff, and I can get 18 to 25-year-old guys come in every time.
Yeah.
We run our own academy for the fire department. It's 12 weeks. By the time you finish that academy, you're ready to test for Firefighter 1 and come out with a emergency medical responder license for medical. It's hard to do with EMS because the EMS programs, the EMT basic, the EMT advanced, the paramedic, it's all in the community colleges now. So they have up to 9 months before they could obtain those licensures sometimes. There's not a lot of people getting in that industry anymore. I don't know if it's the society we're dealing with, the culture we've raised. I don't know, but there's not a.
Well,
When I went to school, they would be full, 29 to 30 something people in a class. Cleveland State, the last I heard this time, they were running maybe 6 in the class. And then there's a shortage over the United States. You know, started to take it personally when it started happening, people leaving and stuff. But then you find out it's everybody. And it's hard. A lot of the older guys retire and go work
see, it's pretty
company jobs.
It's pretty simple to me because you got the baby boomers are all 55 and older or something, and so they're all getting older. People now are having. I mean, they were in families of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, their parents came from families of 6 and 8 and 11. Now people have 2 kids
1
or
to 2.
1, so they're just not filling it in.
Yeah,
there's not that many people in the world. And if you take everybody that wants to become an EMT, they're going to be under 35. You're not going to have somebody in their 50s decide to be that.
Yeah, it's a young man's job. You also you got to look at it this way. I can go to school for, let's go all the way to medic. I can go to school for 2 years, be a medic, and I won't come out making 40, 50,000 a year. I go to school for 2 years and be a X-ray tech, a respiratory therapist.
When you say medic,
nurse,
what do you mean?
Paramedic.
Paramedic, okay.
So you do a respiratory therapist, a X-ray tech, or a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
2 years, you're gonna come out and make double
at a minimum.
At a minimum, and they people look at that, and that's smart. But they look at that and they say, "Well, I want to do that, or I want to be, computer this or computer that. I want to be business office," and they got a lot of the schooling, but yet the money's not. In medic schools, $15,000.
Well, think about this: if you're in the emergency room, you're getting the person coming in has gotten there, they checked in, maybe the ambulance is called ahead, the nurse has already seen the person. You're a little bit more calmer, it seems to me, like you know what you're up against. But a paramedic, he's running into he don't know what. So to me, it would take a lot of nerve to do that.
Yeah, you got dispatch information. Either you got the actual patient calling in or you got a third party calling in. They may be with them, they may not be with them. It's a lot of different scenarios. Sometimes your information is correct. Sometimes your information is way off. We got my old partner. He got a call one night for a man with chest pain. It's 3:30 in the morning. Gets a call for a man with chest pain. He gets to his house, walks in. The guy is holding his chest, sitting in the kitchen in a dining room chair. And he says, "Hey, partner, how you doing? How long's your chest pain been going on?" He says, "Ever since she shot me." So chest pain turned into gunshot wound real quick. I've went actually myself on a severe headache. Ended up being a gunshot wound to the head.
They just didn't want to say it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Like nobody's going to find out.
Maybe the cops won't show up.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Maybe, that's possible. Hadn't thought about that.
Ain't got time to run. But yeah, those are interesting. Sometimes people will make it out to be the most awful situation with chest pain, difficulty breathing, or whatever, and you get to their house and they're sitting on the front porch smoking a cigarette and got their suitcase packed beside them. And you're like, well, it's been going on for 3 weeks, but I need to go to the hospital. It's 2:00 in the morning. And it's been going on for 3 weeks.
I had a friend that went to the hospital and he was getting ready to get out. And I said, "How you getting home?" He said, "The ambulance is taking me." I said, "Taking you home?" He said, "Yeah, they just charge like $60 or something." Is that true?
Maybe if his insurance paid the rest. No. We are one of the lowest in the area.
But will you, if somebody says, "Hey, I'm getting out of the hospital, I need a ride home"?
No, it has to be ordered by the doctor or the staff there. If they can't if they're not mobile,
They have to be not mobile.
yeah,
Because they'd be taking up resources in case something
exactly,
happens.
and especially these days and times, we don't have those resources for all that. I feel bad now because we run the convalescent plus the emergency. So convalescent, you're taking people to doctor's office visits or here or there. And then you got your emergencies that tie in with that all in the middle.
So
It's getting to where I'm not having enough to run the convalescent side because it's so demanding.
now,
with
so you're
everything.
saying if I'm sitting at home and I need to go to the hospital, I can't drive and my wife can't take me because my foot hurts.
We'll come get you. You're a taxpayer and you're paying for that service. People also think that we're charging to make money. EMS has never made enough money to pay for itself. We've come close before, but all we're doing is recouping insurance money and maybe a little bit of a copay to put back money into the fund that the taxpayers are paying into so that it is not such a burden on the taxpayer. We break it down every year to see how close we get to our actual budget that the county sets for us. When I started out, it was in the 4 millions a year. Now we're up to like 6 million for the EMS budget for the county, but that's city and county tax dollars. We may collect everything back, but $1 million. We may collect everything back. The closest I've ever been is $50,000.
Was close, wasn't it?
That was real close. Gary
Was
Davis
you
says we're
tempted-
going to count that as a win.
Was you tempted to put that back in yourself?
No. I take it straight to Mike Smith.
Any special reason that year? Is it just worked out that way?
Yeah, it's
No, who knows?
insurance rules the world.
Yeah.
So it depends on what they want to do.
What they'll pay.
What they pay. Everybody has to abide by Medicare rules. So each insurance company has to say, well, this is what Medicare allows. This is what we will pay. So, and then there's people that we can't charge. If the insurance says no, then we still can't charge them, like the 10 cares, blue cares, stuff like that. I have 4 girls that sit in my office. This is down here on Paul Huff.
Trying to
and
figure
they
that
are
out.
wonderful and very smart and intelligent. And they take care of that, and they are my right arm.
So that's like insurance billing.
Yes.
That would be complicated.
Yes. There's schools for that. And thank the Lord they go, because I don't want to have to.
So is there a paramedic at these volunteer fire halls where there's an ambulance?
Mm-hmm. Now, I cannot guarantee. Bradley County has always had a paramedic on every truck. I can't guarantee that these days because of the shortages and everybody chasing a dollar. I cannot guarantee that. We at least have an EMTA, which is advanced, an EMTA, which you have to be an EMT before you can be a paramedic. But
there's somebody that can give a little medical
a lot, really.
Stop the bleeding or something.
But for a paramedic to be on every truck in Bradley County right now, might be a good day, might not be. But there's going to be somebody there, and they are medically trained, and they have protocols and standards to go by, directed by Dr. Coleman. But
and if there's some kind of a medical emergency, they can have somebody there in a minute anyway.
Yeah,
It's not like
we can run paramedic intercepts where they find them, start this way, we're going to meet you. Dr. Coleman comes out and runs a lot of calls with us when he likes to play. He comes out and runs around. If you see the black Tahoe with lights on it, it's him.
Does he have lights on top of his car?
No, they're all inside.
Oh, yeah.
He runs some calls with us. He's also the director or medical director for the medical examiner's office here in Bradley County. So he's got his hand in the emergency world for us and takes care of things. And we get some people here mostly sometimes because of our protocols. He allows us to do a lot. That ambulance is not just a Band-Aid buggy. It's a mini emergency room rolling down the road. There's a lot of stuff that can be done in the back of that truck.
Hello, I'm Dee Burris,
And most of you know me as a general contractor. In October of 2020, I started a podcast that I call The Discussion with Dee Burris. Each week, I have conversations with interesting, informative, and fascinating people from Cleveland and Bradley County and the surrounding areas. You can watch the discussion at dburris.com on YouTube and Facebook, where we would ask you to please subscribe. It's free for updates and notifications of new shows. It's no problem.
You know, the other day I saw there was somebody at the Captain D's, and they had bandages around his head, and there was two ambulances and 2 fire trucks and 2 police cars. And do they all have to go now? Is that part of the insurance or something?
No, police are there for our protection. If it's not a police matter, but a wreck is a police matter also, they have to do the reports and stuff. Police are there for our protection because we live in a crazy world these days. They investigate anything they need to investigate, criminally or negligent or whatever.
So you might go to a gunshot wound, and it was because there's a shooter. So the police need to be there.
Yeah. Even you said a minute ago something about paramedics walking up into a house.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
Like that guy that says my wife shot me. She might have been wanting to shoot the next person.
Yeah. That's been a trend sometimes. Is something happens, first responders come in, second wave happens. We have to be mindful of that. So even if we go to a house call on a chest pain, a difficulty breathing, unconscious these days, you have to worry more about drug overdoses than anything, unless they're diabetic. What caused the unconscious? You have to look at all that. So police go for various multi reasons. EMS, they're there obviously to get you treated and get you to the hospital quickly and as efficiently as possible. The fire engine, they have minimal medical training at least. I've got most of my Bradley County firemen are trying to get their EMTs and all this other stuff. They're wanting to move further up. So the fire truck comes to help with patient moving, getting them to the ambulance, getting equipment, more hands-on. If you have a difficulty breathing or an unconscious overdose even, and that person needs to be intubated, we're going to breathe for them. There's a vast number of medications that have to be drawn up, at least 3 to 4 or 5 medications have to be drawn up. You have to get IVs in the patient. You have to be hooked up to the cardiac monitor. You have to have pulse oximetry on. You have to have the oxygen going. You have to get your ambu bags ready. You have to get ET tubes pulled out. You got to find the correct size. You got to get your stylage pulled. You got to and see how it just goes. More hands, more jobs get done quickly to get you to the hospital. I've heard the complaints before. Well, I didn't call for the fire department. I called for the ambulance. That fire truck is there to help us. If you get flown out, let's say we can't handle that here in Bradley County. You need a level 1 trauma center. You need a cardiology stent in your heart because you have a blockage right now. We can see a bunch of this on the cardiac monitors that we have. We're going to fly you out, and there's a field right across the street. Well, guess what? We're not waiting on the fire department to get there anymore because the helicopter can sit down and they secure the LZs, landing zones, and talk the helicopter in and get everything underway. There's a big procedure just for the helicopter coming in.
Golly.
We all work together.
Well,
EMS, fire, police, sheriff, it's all a big happy family, and we take care of each other.
What if you went into a house where a guy's unconscious and it's because the gas is leaking? Then you'd need the fire department, wouldn't you?
We had that incident year and a half or 2 ago. It was actually a late night. I think it was on a weekend even. I was out in town, and my radio was on in my truck, and I heard it come across the EMS channel, notify Chief 1, I need him here. Now that doesn't happen a lot for EMS. Now, they may call and say, hey, this happened or that happened, or what do you want to do here? But for one of the paramedics to say, I ain't calling no supervisor, he told dispatch, call Chief 1, get him here now. And I picked up and I said, Chief 1, where do they need me? And it was down on the south end of the county. A gentleman went to the grocery store 2:00 in the afternoon. He got home, pulled his car in the garage, goes upstairs, and 7, 8 o'clock that night, everyone in the house was deathly sick. He left the car running.
Golly.
And
I can see myself doing that.
I think all of us can. I think there was like 5 or 6, 8 patients. I mean, they were scattered. It was a little road where everybody was kin to everybody. And hey, let's go over here and check on these folks. And they're all sitting around the house. Next thing you know, they're falling out. Then the people that was going, hey, so-and-so's over here with stroke-like symptoms. Well, they would go running in the house to check on them. Guess what? They went down. So it was just a bad effect of everything.
Yeah.
EMS got a call for stroke-like symptoms.
Yeah.
But when all the family started coming to check on Papa, they started falling out in the house. And he was like, I'm overwhelmed. Get my chief here, get this here.
Yeah.
We need the fire department more than anything because we got to ventilate that house and get people sick. We were trying to get everybody to the hospital that night. That was a bad situation.
It sounds like a lot of good coordination is what it sounds like.
It is.
For the greater good.
And I understand people.
I mean, they're there. They're there. It's not like they've.
I understand people don't realize. Hey, I called for the fire department. Why is EMS here? Let's flip that.
Yeah, that's right. Good point.
Now you got a house fire. That
Why
ambulance.
is the ambulance here?
That ambulance is there for those firefighters. That is one of the most dangerous. You can fall through a floor. You can fall through a roof. You could fall out of the second story. The floor give away with you.
Don't say that. I'm in the construction business.
I know. You could step on a nail and you could get smoke inhalation. Even being a firefighter, you could need oxygen.
That's true.
Dehydration is the largest problem I have on a fire scene because you will get, especially in the summertime, you get a structure fire in the summer. Some of this heat we had back during the summer was intense. Imagine putting on all that weight, all that gear, all that insulation, and then go into a 700-degree room. On top of that, you were hot before you ever got in the room.
Where do they get water?
We get water from the station. We have pallets we keep.
You don't drink it out of the hose?
No. We got ice machines. We pack the coolers in the mornings if they can.
Is that one of the duties? Pack the coolers?
You better, if you want cold water. Yeah. If not, you're going to be drinking warm water. Either way, we just need the water. But it gets to the point, the Highway 64 flea market fire.
Oh, yeah. That's over here recently.
I probably had 10, 12 firefighters get stuck with IVs that day and go back to fight fire because muscle cramps. You get to cramp. We put an IV in
the ambulance.
Yeah,
put it from there.
Right there. Go back to work.
Those IVs, is it real water? What is it that they're?
Same pH as what's in your body. Then the lactated ringers, it just has electrolytes and potassiums and other stuff in it to help you out. So there's 2 different, and then we have D5 solutions. For mixing.
What's D5?
D5 dextrose.
That's not vitamin D.
No, it's for like diabetics and stuff like that for low blood sugars and stuff. So we have several different solutions that we carry on the ambulance. Most of it is very normal to what is already in your system. So we're not. Yeah. We may fix a drip up, but it has to be ordered or by a doctor.
Well, there's a guy over here at the incubator that does that, those IV drips. So I don't think that's classified as medical.
I hate that he got that idea before I did.
I did that.
The IV bars.
I did that one time, and I felt a little better. Yeah. But I haven't done the D. I did the vitamin B, I think.
B12s is what people want. Yeah. It's a big thing in most of your party towns. People get hangovers and want to go to the IV bar. And
I think that's just dehydration too.
Dehydration too, yes.
You can't hardly drink enough water when you get out.
Yeah.
That's what the IV's for, I guess.
Yeah.
because you just want to pee otherwise.
But the ambulance is on fire scenes for the firefighters or anybody else that needs
That's
it.
right, because they could get hurt.
Very much so. They are relieved. That ambulance goes back in service when whoever's commanding the fire scene says, you guys are released, because he feels comfortable enough then that we're in a safe zone now, so they can go. We know why the fire is helping EMS. It's more hands. They have medical training, moving patients. They do a whole host of stuff and help that whole scene out, land the helicopters, all that stuff. And then we know why fire and EMS need sheriff's department or the police there. They find out why that, we have a bad overdose problem in Bradley County. It's getting out of hand.
What are they overdosing with? Not is there no
fentanyl.
Is there some fentanyl here?
We have a lot of fentanyl here, and we have a lot of heroin here.
Are they taking fentanyl because they know it, or is it laced in the stuff?
They don't know it.
Well, why would they put fentanyl in it?
Why would you take meth?
Well,
why would you take
at least at least you know you're taking it.
Yeah.
Why would you, if you're a drug dealer, why would you put fentanyl in it?
To get an effect, everybody wants to be able to. I guess we're going to switch over to my drug days now, being a drug task force. Everybody wants to sell the best product. So I have some regular marijuana, or I have some regular hydrocodone. But if I put a little bit of this fentanyl in it, and they get more bang for their buck, they're going to come back to me. That's my thinking process on it. I seen that even with, mostly it was just methamphetamine whenever I was at the drug task force. I run one case where I had heroin, and it was a big deal because heroin wasn't in Bradley County at the time. Everybody, I had one guy that, of course we get a lot of calls to drive-throughs, restaurants at night. They'll pass out in the drive-through. They'll go to sleep, or waiting to get up there to the call box. So we have a lot of people in drive-throughs. We have a lot of people at gas stations that will be. You will not sleep in your car in Bradley County. Someone will call in on you, I promise, and you'll be getting a tap on the window. So what happens is I have a call to a gas station here in town. The caller stated that this person was sitting in a car. They were locked in. They're at the gas pump, young male, breathing 4 times a minute. I was close by. I responded. We finally get the door open. Ambulance is pulling up. I radioed and told them, bring me the stretcher and get Narcan ready. Put him on the stretcher. We were pushing Narcan. I put him in the truck, and I straddled him, standing, looking at his face to see if he's starting to breathe more. And he wakes up and looks at me, and I said, are you ready to meet Jesus? And he went, I said, well, you about did. What did you take? And he said, I said, I'm not the police. What did you take? I'm trying to help you. He was convinced he had bought some pills. And what he did is he took one, and he had no effect. He took the second one. He had no effect. He took the third one, and he made it probably a quarter mile from where he had started and went out. What they do is, let's take the pills. They grind them up, put them in a bowl, and they go, let's add some fentanyl. They mix it up.
For what? For to get a better high of some sort?
Now let's press these back out. They'll have pill press. They'll start pressing them back out, making pills. A pharmacist knows how much is in each pill.
Yeah.
A street pharmacist does not. So when he mixes it up this bowl, there might be a lot of fentanyl on this side, and there may be no fentanyl on this side. So this guy took 2 pills, and he's like, well, this ain't doing nothing. Well, that third one got him. That might have been loaded up with fentanyl. And, might have to keep them on a Narcan drip to keep them awake. It's
what's Narcan?
Narcan naloxone. It reverses the effects of opioids.
How does it do that? I mean,
quickly.
I mean, what methods?
IV.
What's the
nasal.
science?
Actually, every officer and firefighter, and which we've always had Narcan on an ambulance. But now every first responder in Bradley County has Narcan. And it's the nasal. You squirt it up the nose, person inhales, and if it's an opioid, it'll work.
Wonder what it's doing.
I don't know the chemical compound to say this does this, this reacts to that. We can get Dr. Coleman in here if you want to figure all that out.
But it does.
But it will reverse those effects.
Because I've heard that.
And those people will usually get mad at you because you took their high away from them.
Even in that state.
Even in that state, some of them will fight you. So sometimes we put tubes down and breathe for them and keep things going. We wake them up at the hospital in a controlled setting.
Are you familiar with a guy named Scott Adams? He's the author of Dilbert, the Dilbert comic. He has
I think I've heard
a
the
show
name
called Coffee with Scott Adams. I watch it every day. I've watched it every day for, I guess, 3 years. And he had a stepson that died of fentanyl poisoning or overdosing, and he has waged a war on fentanyl. And my money's on him. He claims that he says that fentanyl should be listed as a terrorism because it's that bad.
Well, back when I first realized how powerful fentanyl was, you could get a fentanyl patch or a fentanyl lollipop from your doctor for pain. That was in my younger days of being on the truck at EMS. And I had a lady that would abuse it. She would take those patches and she would pack them in her gum, like dip, like me and you have, and suck on those things to the point to where she would pass out. Very large lady. And we warned her and warned her and warned her, you're dancing with the devil. You better watch out. These are going to get you to knock your respiratory system out. And it took a while, but it finally did happen. That was the only I thought it was only a patch or a lollipop for your pain, but now we have it. It's on the black market. You can apparently get a lot of it, and I don't know how now. I'm out of the drug task force. I don't follow the fentanyl other than what we deal with in the street here with EMS and fire. It's scary for the first responder even because if it passes through your skin.
That's what they say. They say
if you touch that, you're going to get the same effect.
It's worse than meth then, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Meth's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. I call it the devil drug. But fentanyl is scary for everybody because if you touch it and you're not protected, you're going to be affected also.
And according to Scott Adams, it's just so small amount that you have to have that it can be.
And then they have a product called carfentanil, which is an elephant tranquilizer. And the representation I seen, they had a glass jar that was very tiny, but it was long, like a vial. And they had about that much fentanyl in the bottom of one, regular fentanyl. It'd be like several thousand grains of sand. And they said, this is a lethal dose to a human. And then they took carfentanil and put it in a thing, and it was like 3 grains of sand. 3 grains. And they said, this is a lethal dose to a human. It is so strong.
You could wipe out the whole Bradley County.
We have had carfentanil. We have had some carfentanil overdoses here. It's very dangerous. It'll kill you very fast.
But you have to be aware of all of this stuff being in the.
So therefore, you need police there. You need EMS there. You need fire.
You've made perfect sense of that. And when I mentioned that about Captain D's, I feel like an idiot.
No.
Because you've made extreme sense out of that.
If we can clear that up, and people that pay our salaries and pay their taxes for those services, I want them to understand it's not wasteful. It is all very needed.
I don't think anybody, policeman stopping you for going 35 instead of 30, that'd make you mad. But any of this other stuff, I understand it even more now.
Well, good. That's what we're trying to do.
But isn't Gary Davis, he does a really good job.
He does.
I mean, he really does.
He does. Very smart man.
He's very smart, yeah.
I like to tell people the story when I go into his office and I have to say, I need this or I need that. And then this is how I'm going to pay for it. And we won't have to do this.
Yeah.
Or what. And I'll show him my numbers.
Yeah.
And then he'll do numbers. Tries to throw you off.
Yeah.
We'll get to the same number.
Yeah.
We do math different.
Yeah.
But he's a smart man. And when he does his math, he's a smart man with numbers.
He tries to really do a good job.
He does a good job for
He tries to
everybody.
do a good job better than he tries to save money.
He does a good job for everybody. I appreciate what he does. He gets a hard rap sometimes because, it's like me being a chief. I have tons of friends in my circles.
Uh-huh.
But when you become the chief, it's almost like a target gets bigger on your back, and people you thought were your friends, you're not. I don't know. It's a rivalry thing. I don't know. Somebody said, "Would you ever run for political office?" I said, "No, I will not. I don't want that. That's not for me." Gary Davis does a good job for this county.
He does.
He is very mindful of those tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
He takes good care of it. We have good commissioners.
We really do.
I think
yeah.
they take good care of everything. Very mindful of it. We got new commissioners. We got some.
How
some
many
people
new
coming
ones?
up?
3 or 4?
Josh Rogers, Tommy Ledford, Donut,
Yeah.
Beatty.
Uh-huh.
Got several.
Let me ask you this. It just dawned on me. How do you, when they annex these, like say this is the county and they're going to annex this into the city, how do you know that not to go? That gets confusing, doesn't it?
We have, I always say this wrong, so a little pre-warning. GIS or G?
Yep.
Yep.
GIS.
GIS. I always put the S or the I in front. The mapping stuff for Bradley County.
Yeah.
Wayne down here at the
Wayne
courthouse.
Owenby.
Wayne Owenby. Wayne is very smart, does a great job.
Wayne is a genius.
When I guess Stanley Thompson and Wayne.
Stanley's not as smart as Wayne.
He said that. When they get together and say this was annexed or whatever, the new maps are drawn. Those maps are sent by email and CD-ROM to the 911 center. And the mapping person at the 911 center sits down and draws the new lines. When you call 911, it knows if you get city or county response. It knows which stations are closer, which officers. Everything's on a MDT, mobile data terminal stuff now. They don't have that in the fire trucks or ambulances yet, but the police do. And they can tell that. So the lines are drawn. They are at the 911 center. So when there's annexations or anything develops, it's all mapped out and we know at the 911 center. So that information is given to the appropriate people out in the field to respond. We know where all the hydrants are. We know where keys are for
Is
getting
that those
into places.
blue reflectors on the road? Does that designate
Water hydrant?
Where a water
Yeah.
hydrant is?
Yeah, sure does. I've wanted to do a project in the county to where I put a blue line, like your yellow and white lines on the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tape, and it's heated and it melts into the road.
Yeah.
I would like, and I've looked into this. I can't afford it with budget. A small blue strip on either side of the yellow line, whichever that would indicate which side the hydrant is on and where the hydrant is. So when the guy driving the fire truck is going down the road, he goes, "I got a hydrant right there. I got a hydrant right there."
Because in the day, that blue reflector won't show up, I guess, right?
Well, the reflector, when we have our little snowstorms or our little ice storms, if they bring the snow plows through, those reflectors get knocked off.
Then I hit them when I'm riding my bicycle. And
That's dangerous.
plus, the fire hydrant, you can't always see it. It's covered in grass.
The road department will tell you that they even hit them with the bush hogs.
Yeah.
And
some get filled up with dirt, and they're just that tall now.
Yeah. They actually wanted me to do that project. Sandra, when she was in, she actually looked up how much that stuff was, the roll of it and stuff. But to mark those would be wonderful for the road department and the fire department. Interesting thing, fire hydrant, since we're talking about them, there's a different color top on each fire hydrant.
Is that pressure?
That's how much
That's
pressure.
How much pressure?
A lot of people out there don't know the different colored top tells the fire department how much pressure is supposed to be on that line, so we know how much water supply we're going to have. Because there's a big difference in fighting a residential structure house fire, 1,200, 1,500 square foot home, than there is fighting your industrial fire or even a chicken house fire, out in the county. Big water is needed. Sometimes even though we have a hydrant, we're still going to call for tanker trucks to come so that we can keep up with the flow that we got to have. So those color tops on those hydrants, a lot of people don't know that. That means how much pressure's on that line.
Well, when I'm getting ready, we're talking to people about building a building that's going to have a sprinkler. I always look out at the fire hydrant, because if there's not enough pressure to run the sprinkler system, you're going to have a pump and wire the pump and inspect the pump, and it's just.
Yeah, we have been. I go and usually do the final inspections to the new businesses in Bradley County now with the fire marshal that we have.
Yeah, he comes by here about once a day.
Now you're probably getting the city one. I don't know if you're getting the county one.
He's probably at the door.
Johnny Stokes is doing the county fire marshal jobs now, so he goes out and does.
If this place starts burning, I'll just go outside.
We got insurance, don't we?
We got insurance.
There you go. So the sprinkler systems are becoming a big deal. But having the water to get that sprinkler,
that's the big deal.
Is a big deal. Even our county commission's working on trying to get broadband, trying to get more water out there and utilities and stuff. So hopefully all that goes through.
Some of these places in the county just have that little 2-inch fire hydrant that's at the end of a line. That's not much count. But people say, I got a fire hydrant.
Yeah, we don't hook to those. Those are clean outs. Yeah. So we don't hook to those. So we need an actual hydrant. When
I think of fire trucks, I always think of the Three Stooges when they were coming out of there. He was on the ladder and he's swinging around.
Yeah. Bradley County got its first ladder. We've recently just got delivered our first 100-foot ladder.
It's on the truck, or is it just separate?
It's all together. It's a ladder truck. We call it Tower 1. It's 100 foot. All this industrial stuff going up on the north end and everything. It's required. ISO, which regulates kind of your insurance rates with your fire departments and how much your house insurance is going to cost you. We're trying to be as compliant as possible with that. And they say that any structure, residential or not, from the base floor to the peak of the roof that's 33 feet is considered a 3-story building. And we are required to have a ladder truck for it. So, but we've got our first delivery of the first ever ladder. We had a telesquirt up in Charleston. I got from TVA back in the 90s. It's an 83 model. It's only like a 50-footer or something like that. But we have a big boy now. So
how many people are under you?
At EMS, in between 60 to 80 employees there. And then at fire, we're running about 72 employees, and then we have about 30 to 40 volunteers at any given time. So a few.
You make me feel better about my day tomorrow.
You want to come help me? You can.
I had no idea that all of this was so in depth. I'm in awe. Thank you.